recently that we have lost a generation of people with feet on the ground in China, young people who will be the China watchers, the China hands of the future. We're losing that, and it's going to get worse if we have nobody that understands China. So I think it's very important that we try to build a small team, at least, of Americans who really understand China, whether as friends or foe, it doesn't matter, but understand China.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Thank you so much for your time, Professor William Brown.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.
Now the news. I'm Shane Bigham. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi put forward 4 proposals to promote security and development in Asia. He attended the conference on interaction and confidence-building measures in Asia. The senior Chinese diplomat asked members to respect diversity, practice multilateralism, abandon the Cold War mentality, and pursue win-win cooperation. He also called on members to implement the Global Security Initiative and jointly build the Belt and Road Initiative. Foreign ministers of Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan also attended the meeting. China says it stands ready to provide emergency assistance to Vanuatu following a major earthquake in the Pacific Island country. A spokesperson for the China International Development Cooperation Agency says Beijing is deeply saddened by the casualties and property losses, adding that the aid will come in accordance with the island nation's pressing needs. A 7.3 magnitude tremor jolted Vanuatu on Tuesday, killing at least 14 people and wounding hundreds more. 2 Chinese nationals are among the dead. The country's caretaker prime minister imposed a 7-day curfew in the worst affected areas. Russian authorities have detained 2 suspects over the killing of a senior military officer in Moscow. Lieutenant General Igor Kirilov and his assistant got outside an apartment building when a bomb went off on Tuesday morning. Kirilov was the commander of the Russian Armed Forces Chemical, Biological, and Radiation Defense Troops. Moscow has blamed Ukraine for the attack and threatened revenge. The UN Special Envoy says Syria has entered an entirely new reality following the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's government. Geir Peterson and UN aid chief Tom Fletcher briefed the Security Council from Damascus, where they've met with the country's new leaders. Peterson warned that significant obstacles and mounting tensions could threaten the fragile progress achieved.
Of course, it is only 11 days since the fall of the former regime. My door is open, and I hope in the coming days we can build that dialogue. I understand we will do the massive challenges facing the authorities and the need to help concretely. No. We understand the need for stability, but stability will not last long if not built on credible and inclusive foundations.
China says it hopes Syria will achieve peace and restore stability as soon as possible. Envoy Geng Shuang said China is ready to play a constructive role to that end. He said it's imperative to stabilize the security situation. Hamas says reaching an agreement for a ceasefire and prisoner exchange is possible if Israel stops setting new conditions. Egypt and Qatar, with the participation of the United States, to find a mediation agreement to end the ongoing war.
Will be quite similar to the one seen in the West Bank, meaning that the daily life will be controlled by the Palestinians. Israel will not be in charge of education, sewage, garbage, you name it, but will have an overall structure of security. Israeli forces will be allowed or will be able to go into the Gaza Strip if needed based on intelligence. We're seeing this practically night after night in the West Bank. We're hearing about nightly raids in places like Jenin, Nablus, and other places in the West Bank.
Shenzhou 19 crew members aboard China's space station have completed their first spacewalk. Tsai Shujie, Song Lindong, and Wang Haoze worked for 9 hours, completing multiple tasks, including the installation of space debris protection devices. The China Manned Space Agency said the mission set a new record for the longest spacewalk by Chinese astronauts. The 2024 Beijing Forum on Swift Response to Public Complaints is opened in the Chinese capital. This year, the event is themed Modernizing the People-Centered Urban Governance. It provides an international platform dedicated to searching for innovative solutions for issues in public service and sharing experiences on urban governance. Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. won the Best FIFA Men's Player 2024 award. Brazilian had 48 points, while Manchester City's Spanish midfielder Rodri collected 43 points in second spot. Barcelona's Aitana Bonmati won the Best Women's Player for the second consecutive year. And that's the news. I'm Shane Dixon.
From epic tales of mystery and magic to accounts of battle and empire. From the verses of to the masterpieces.
Presentation for book 2 Years in the Forbidden City, who was a renowned lady in waiting to the Empress Dowager Cixi in the early 20th century. In today's episode, Marlene narrates the second part of the last chapter, titled Conclusion. Enjoy.
Summer months, I had plenty of leisure time and devoted about an hour each day to helping the Emperor with his English. He was a most intelligent man with a wonderful memory and learned very quickly. His pronunciation, however, was not good. In a very short time, he was able to read short stories out of an ordinary school reader and could write from dictation fairly well. Handwriting was exceptionally fine, while in copying Old English and ornamental characters, he was a master. He seemed pleased that the Emperor And on one occasion, he ventured the remark that I didn't seem to have made much progress with Her Majesty in the matter of reform. I told him that many things had been accomplished since my arrival at court and mentioned the new audience hall as an instance. He didn't appear to think that anything worth talking about and advised me to give up the matter altogether. He said when the proper time arrived, if it ever did arrive, then I might be of use, but expressed grave doubts on the subject. He also inquired about my father, and I told him that unless his health improved very soon, it would be necessary for us to leave the court for a while, at any rate. He replied that although he should very much regret such a necessity, he really believed that it would be for the best. He said he felt certain that I should never be able to settle down permanently to court life after spending so many years abroad, and for his part would put no obstacles in the way of my leaving the court if I decided to do so. Her Majesty had given me permission to visit my father twice every month, and everything appeared to be going along nicely until one day One of Her Majesty's servant girls told me that Her Majesty was trying to arrange another marriage for me. At first, I did not take any notice of this, but shortly afterwards, Her Majesty informed me that everything was arranged and that I was to be married to a certain prince whom she had chosen. I could see that Her Majesty was waiting for me to say something, so I told her that I was very much worried at that time about my father and begged her to allow the matter to stand over for the time being at any rate. This made Her Majesty very angry, and she told me that she considered me very ungrateful after all she had done for me. I didn't reply, and as Her Majesty did not say anything more at the time, I tried to forget about it. However, on my next visit home, I told my father all about it, and as before, he was strongly opposed to such a marriage. He suggested that on my return to the palace, I should lay the whole matter before Li Lian-yin, the head eunuch, and explain my position. For if anybody could influence Her Majesty, he was the one. I, therefore, took the first opportunity of speaking to him. At first, he appeared very reluctant to interfere in the matter and said he thought I ought to do as Her Majesty wished. But on my stating that I had no desire to marry at all, but was quite willing to remain at court in my present position, he promised to do his best for me. I never heard anything further about my marriage, either from Her Majesty or Li Lian-yin, and therefore concluded that he had been able to arrange the matter satisfactorily. Summer passed without anything further important occurring. During the 8th moon, the bamboos were cut down, and here again, the court ladies were called upon to assist. Our work being to carve designs and characters on the cut trees, Her Majesty assisting. These were afterwards made into chairs, tables, and other useful articles for Her Majesty's tea house. During the long autumn evenings, Her Majesty would teach us Chinese history and poetry, and every 10th day would put us through an examination in order to find out how much we had learned, prizes being awarded for proficiency. The younger eunuchs also took part in these lessons, and some of their answers to Her Majesty's questions were very amusing. If Her Majesty were in a good humor, she would laugh with the rest of us, but sometimes she would order them punished. However, as they were quite accustomed to being punished, they did not seem to mind very much and forgot all about it the next minute.
Literature, a presentation of timeless works of Chinese literature. I'm Hong Today, written by Princess Lily, who was a renowned lady-in-waiting to the Empress Dowager Cixi in the early 20th century. Darling's point of view offers a quite unique and surprisingly intimate portrait of the Empress and Beijing's imperial palace in China's last feudal dynasty. Please enjoy the show.
As Her Majesty's 70th birthday was approaching, the Emperor proposed to celebrate this event on an unusually grand scale. But Her Majesty would not give her consent to this proposal on account of the wardrobe, for fear people might comment on it. The only difference, therefore, between this birthday and the former ones was that Her Majesty gave presents to the court in addition to receiving them. These included the bestowal of titles, promotions, and increases in salary. Among the titles conferred by Her Majesty, my sister and myself received the title of Chun Chu Xian, Princess. These titles, however, were confined to members of the court and were granted specially by the Empress Dowager. Similar promotions to outside officials were always conferred by the Emperor. It was proposed to hold the celebrations in the Forbidden City as it was more suited for such an important event. However, Her Majesty did not like this idea at all and gave instructions that the court should not be moved until 3 days before the 10th of the 10th moon, the date of her birthday. This entailed a lot of unnecessary work, as it necessitated decorating both the Summer Palace and the Forbidden City. Everything was hurry and bustle. To add to this, it snowed very heavily during the few days previous to the 10th. Her Majesty was in a very good mood. She was very fond of being out in the snow and expressed a wish to have some photographs taken of herself on the hillside. So my brother was commanded to bring his camera and took several very good pictures of Her Majesty. On the 7th day, the court moved into the Forbidden City and the celebrations commenced. The decorations were beautiful, the courtyards being covered with glass roofs to keep out the snow. The theaters were in full swing each day. The actual ceremony, which took place on the 10th, did not differ in any respect from previous ones. Everything passed off smoothly, and the court removed again into the Sea Palace. While at the Sea Palace, we received the news that my father's condition was becoming serious, and he again tendered his resignation to Her Majesty. She sent her eunuchs to find out exactly what the matter was, and on learning that he was really very ill, accepted his if the foreign physicians could do him any good. She said she supposed it would be necessary for my mother to accompany him to Shanghai, but did not consider it serious enough to send my sister and myself along also. I tried to explain that it was my duty to go along with him, as he might have taken worse and gone before I could get
状态不好啊等等，那这种情况是
这个情况也建议一些。
I suppose you want to be with him, so you may go on the understanding that you return to court as soon as ever possible. We did not get away until the middle of the evening, as Her Majesty insisted on making clothes for us and other preparations for our journey. Of course, we could do nothing but await Her Majesty's pleasure. When everything was ready, Her Majesty referred to her book to choose a suitable day for our departure, and fixed on the 13th as indicated. We therefore left the house for our own house on the 12th. We kowtowed and said goodbye to Her Majesty, thanking her for her many kindnesses during our stay with her. Everybody cried, even Her Majesty. We then went to say goodbye to the Emperor and young Empress. The Emperor introduced and wished us good luck in English. Everybody appeared sorry to see us leave. After standing about for a long time, Her Majesty said it was no use wasting any more time and that we had better start. At the gate, we had own eunuchs accompanying us to the door. We found everything prepared for our journey, and early the next morning, we took a train to Tianjin, where we just managed to catch the last steamer of the season leaving for Shanghai. As it was, the water was so shallow that we ran aground on the Taku Bar.
Welcome to Light on Literature, a presentation of timeless works of Chinese literature. I'm Huang Rui. Today, Manli narrates 2 Years in the Forbidden City, a book written by Princess Deling, who was a renowned lady-in-waiting to the Empress Dowager Cixi in the early 20th century. Deling's point of view offers a quite unique and surprisingly intimate portrait of the Empress and Beijing's imperial palace in China's last feudal dynasty. Please enjoy the show.
Seemed to have done him a lot of good. I very soon began to miss my life at court, and although I had many friends in Shanghai and was invited to dinner parties and dances, still, I did not seem to be able to enjoy myself. Everything seemed distant to what I and I simply longed for the time when I should be able to return to Her Majesty. About 2 weeks after our arrival, Her Majesty sent a special messenger down to Shanghai to see how we were getting along. He brought us many beautiful presents and also a lot of medicine for my father. He informed us that we were missed very much at court and advised us to return as soon as it was possible for us to do so. As my father began to show signs of improvement, that there was no further need for me to stay in Shanghai, and thought it better that I should return to Peking and resume my duties at court. I therefore returned in the new year. The river was frozen, and I had to travel by boat to Qingwan town. From thence, by rail to Peking. It was a most miserable journey, and I was very glad when it was over. Her Majesty sent my eunuchs to the station to meet me, and I at once proceeded to the palace. On meeting Her Majesty, we both cried again by way of expressing our happiness. I informed her that my father was progressing durably, and that I hoped to be able to remain with her permanently. I resumed my previous duties, but this time I had neither my sister for a companion nor my mother to chat with, and everything appeared changed. Her Majesty was just the same, however, and treated me most kindly. Still, I was not comfortable and heartily wished myself back again in Shanghai. I stayed at the court, going through pretty much the same daily routine as before, until when I received a summoning me to Shanghai. Had become worse. I sent her to the telegram and waited for her decision. She commenced by telling me that Ariel is new, and his chances of recovering that I could go to him, not once. I again wished everybody goodbye, fully expecting to return very soon. But this was not to be. I found my father in a very dangerous condition, and after a lingering illness, he died on the 18th of December, 1905. Of course, we went into mourning for 100 days, which in itself prevented my returning to the court. While in Shanghai, I made many new friends and acquaintances, and gradually began to realize that after all, the attractions of court life had not been able to eradicate the influences which had been brought to bear upon me while youth. At heart, I was a foreigner, educated in a foreign country, and having already met my husband, the matter was soon settled, and I became an American citizen. However, I often look back to the 2 years I spent at the court of Her Majesty, the Empress Dowager of China, the most eventful and happiest days of my girlhood. Although I was not able to do much towards influencing Her Majesty in the matter of reform, I still hope to live to see the day when China shall wake up and take her proper place among the nations of the world.
And that concludes the book 2 Years in the Forbidden City, written by Princess Sterling, who was a renowned lady-in-waiting to the Empress Dowager Cixin in the early 20th century. Thank you for joining us on this illustrated journey. Home from Ray. See you next time.
Students that listening is the key to mastering the language. Check out Takeaway Chinese, where you can start learning the language quickly and enjoyably, no matter if you're a rookie or a sophisticated Chinese learner.
我来北京5年了，我是本地人。
There is definitely something that will interest you. Check out Takeaway Chinese. A world starts with 你好.
The best military commander is not he who fights 100 battles and wins every one of them. The best military strategy does not lead to the desiccation of the enemy's capital city. Decoding the art of war will help you understand why there's no art in war and how Sun Tzu stayed undefeatable using the science of war with fun stories and insightful breakdown of famous battles. Tune in to Decoding the Art of War on Spotify.
Put down that lengthy book spanning thousands of years and instead follow the Makers and Shakers of Chinese History podcast, which presents the biographies of 20 historic figures who shaped the course of ancient China. Meet the most renowned ancient Chinese rulers, ministers, thinkers, scientists, poets and rebels, and find out how they continue to influence the Chinese to this day. Subscribe to Makers and Shakers of Chinese History for free on your favorite podcast app.
Light on Literature, a presentation of works of Chinese Forbidden City, a book written by Princess Darling, who was a renowned lady-in-waiting to the Empress Dowager Cixi in the early 20th century. Darling's point of view offers a quite unique and surprisingly intimate portrait of the Empress and Beijing's imperial palace in China's last feudal dynasty. Please enjoy the show.
In a more laid-back and accessible manner, join insiders, experts, and analysts in the casual setting of the chat lounge to hear their personal experiences and opinions on major events and topic issues. Subscribe to Chat Lounge for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
What's actually going on in Africa through the perspective of an African? How are things really going between China and Africa? What's the narrative of this relationship?
Well, get a perspective with China-Africa Talk. Hear from African diplomats, entrepreneurs, academics, Chinese natives, and more. Get on our wavelength every week to find out what's real with China-Africa Talk. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. We'll see you there.
South, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys. Experience the musical classics of the East. Mingle with the masters of Chinese music.
的这种美，召唤了女性。
因为蒙古人就被称为马背人，法式二胡。
Music talks. Witness the sound of antiquity and modernity.
Cutting through an overload of information to get to the heart of the story. This is The Point.
As cities around the world continue to grow and become even more densely populated, hotlines for residents to contact authorities about public concerns and complaints have become ever more important to achieve effective governance. In 2019, Beijing implemented the 12345 hotline, merging 64 previous hotlines into a single channel, and so far people are giving it a thumbs up with a 97% satisfaction rate. So how does the service work? How does it compare with other similar hotlines in mega cities around the world? And how do hotlines like this help make cities more enjoyable to live in here in China? Welcome to this special edition of The Point with me, Li Xin, coming to you from Beijing. I'm pleased to be joined today by Xia Lu, Research Fellow at the National Academy of Development and University of China, Zun Ahmed Khan, Senior Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. She's from Pakistan. Rafael Enrique de Betel, a Brazilian foreign expert at China International Communications Group, and Wang Xiaohan, a student at the University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China, who has first-hand experience using such a hotline. The warmest welcome to all of you. Now, a bit of a background to this hotline. It actually originated from the Beijing Mayor's hotline service dating back to 1987 for the purpose, of course, of calling in public concerns. Back then, it only had 3 operators with one phone number, and the number 12345 was first launched in Hangzhou in southern China in 1999, and then the following year in Beijing, and in 2019 it was upgraded as part of the reform called Swift Response to Public Complaints. Now, that number now includes 64 different hotlines which were running previously in the city. Now, this 12345 has 750 channels, 1,700 operators, and offers services to both phone, website, and social media platforms such as Weibo and WeChat. Other cities in China have also adopted the 12345 hotline over the years for general complaints and other hotlines for specific topics. So it is now a national standard hotline and cover around 350 administrative units in China, including provinces and provincial capitals and major cities. So that was a brief idea of this 12345 service. Let me go to Professor Xia here. Help us understand a bit of the context of the reform. Why is the reform necessary?
Thank you very much for the question. I think one of the reasons that the 12345 combine and incorporate all the previous hotline is that to provide more convenience for the local residents to look for help. For example, previously, if we people like us want to call for something like the tax, we need to call 12366. And if you want to call something like the post office, we need to call 12305. And if you want to call something like the market supervision, and if we want to protect our consumer rights, we need to call 12315, and so on and so forth. There are too many, let's say, different hotlines, and even not just limited to 5 digits, and even 6 or 7 digits. So for those elder people, for those kind of people who do not have ability to memorize all this kind of number, is inconvenient for them to look for help. And also, for those kind of previous kind of practice, it is difficult for them to connect with the people who could provide the real help. So the 12345 or the swift response to the public complaint help people to quickly get the answer, not real answer to the real question, but the real response. Okay, so for this kind of thing, I think it is a more emotional kind of touch for the people to get the government kind of response. So I think that is necessary point.
Better experience talking about. But when we're talking about swift, how swift is swift response? Let me go to Wang Xiaohan. I understand you have some personal experience using the hotline. What was it that you wanted to complain about, and was it resolved swiftly?
Yeah, okay, thank you for the question. Well, I think as a citizen, everyone has its responsibility to maintain the urban facilities. So I remember last summer when my father and he drove me to school. On the street, I saw some waterlogging roads. And that was a situation that lasts for 2 and 3 days. Well, for me, it's not only like depends the way I went to school, but also I think it's a major hidden also maybe they can help change the situation. And it happened at night. And then I get a response later. They call me that they will come and fix this problem. Like the day after that day, I went here and I saw some people saying
William, let me go to you. You have lived in China for many years, I understand. Have you used this hotline to complain about something? Or if not, have you had friends who were using it? What is your understanding of the service and the meaning of it?
Thank you firstly, Liu-Shin, for having me here. Yes, it's been about 9 years that I've lived in Beijing. Being in a city like Beijing, let me first of all
Just a moment. There's drilling sound coming in.
Yes, I said that there is. Yeah.
Let me go to Raphael. And maybe when it's not drilling, you let me know. So, Raphael, let me ask you about it. You have also lived in China. Have you used the 12345 hotline? What has been your experience?
Not yet. Since I came to China, I heard about the 12345, but I feel that we don't have much understanding of in which situations this hotline may help us. In my mind, I always felt like if something important happens or if I need to report something important, I could call it. I always had that feeling that in situations of emergency, I could call 12345 for information or to report something. but I never felt like my problem is so big that I should go. I think this is one common feeling of many foreigners in China. Maybe the local government should do a better work in explaining how the 12345 can be used by foreigners in everyday life.
Well, what is your understanding of hotlines such as this one, according to your Brazilian background? And have you noticed something different? I mean, for me, even for me as a Chinese, this is a rather amazing project for a city of 21 million. How many calls they might be receiving on a daily basis, and they all have to be accounted for. You cannot just say, okay, I heard you, and then that's it. You have to follow up. People have to, your job is not done until you're rated by the one who calls. Until the one who calls says, okay, I'm satisfied. That is, for me, that is, I don't know anywhere else this is happening, Rafael.
Yeah, that is really great. You know, in Brazil, many hotlines have this problem that people complain that they call, they report the problem, and don't receive a feedback, or the problem is not solved, or they solve it after a very long time. So basically, in Brazil, I think one issue is that we have many different hotlines, you know, because in China, the government always has a comprehensive approach to policies, so you can have different organizations, different institutions doing different work, but the planning is all interconnected and they all can cooperate. So usually in China you find this kind of situation. You contact one institution and they will direct your issues, your questions to the relevant department. While in Brazil you need to guess who you should contact to have a problem solved. And sometimes it's, the complication will start at this moment. You know, so in this sense, I think in China it's much easier. You know, even because when you need to call, like which hotline should I call? If you have many different hotlines, it can be complicated. But in China, you know, you have only one hotline, and the number is very easy to memorize. So this is a good advantage. I can tell a story from when I was in university. You know, there was a dog died near the avenue in front of my house, and then it starts to decompose, it is smelly, and we tried to call the local service of the city government, and they were saying that it was responsibility of the firemen, and the firemen said it's responsibility of the city hall. So they were like two departments of the government, one giving the responsibility to another, and none of them solved their problem. So for many days, until finally they solved it. So this is an example of what the kind of problem you may create when you have different hotlines.
I see. Well, Professor Xia, the authority, the Chinese government actually set out a mammoth challenge for itself, right? Because you can imagine for a city of 21 million covering 16,000 square kilometers, that's 70 times the size of the Paris metropolitan area. When everybody can pick up the line and just complain, imagine how many people will do that at the same time and day in and day out. And they have to be swiftly responded. The problem has to be swiftly resolved. Otherwise, the relevant authority, local authority or local government will be asked to explain why you didn't fix the problem. How big of a challenge is that? And why does China want to take up such a challenge?
Well, I think one of the underlying feature of Chinese government is it is always following the people-centered philosophy, people-centered governing philosophy. So in order to give people that we are really responding to your question, maybe at the spot right now we could not solve the problem, but we can give you a direction. We can give you a kind of emotional smooth that you are heard, you are concerned, your question is being recorded, and the next stage we'll have some kind of special guys to provide you kind of with a facility. For example, solving the noisy problem, just like you do in her house. The noisy, maybe she can just call the 12345. Let's say someone really making a noise, and during the business day, that is a real example we can call. And I myself really call this kind of thing.
Yeah.
You would? Okay, Zune, let me get back to you. And hope that the noise is not too loud at this time. Let's try it again.
They were very cooperative, so they know the hotline exists, and that acts as a, good factor.
You did? You went to talk to them, and you said...
next door and asked them.
You said you were going to call 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I didn't need to call, but I do feel, like what Professor Shah mentioned, that I think that cooperative environment exists also partially because people like me or anybody on this panel has the option to call a hotline in case people are not cooperating. I think that might be an externality, a positive externality of the hotline existing.
But wouldn't it become a kind of, abuse? Because if you don't satisfy me, if you don't make me happy, whatever my aspiration is, I'm going to call. It sounds to me that there's a high possibility that people, public service, especially at the grassroots, may be hijacked because people have this very powerful tool.
It's like a weapon, right? And you can use it preemptively. But here I have to add that honestly, in my experience, I've lived, as you mentioned, for many years in Beijing. I've lived in 6 different apartments. And increasingly, in this current apartment where I am right now, the entire community, we have a WeChat group, which is very vibrant, where all of us, the local community officers, are able to express any complaints, any ideas, any suggestions that we have. So, for example, when this drilling started, which was actually a few days ago, some of the residents complained about it. And then, that's actually functioning. Maybe others like Rafael and Professor Shah would have a similar experience, that they have these WeChat groups for access to the local community officers as well. And once, that doesn't work, if that mechanism doesn't work, which has not happened in my case, I haven't needed to call the helpline because such issues have always been resolved. Then maybe the hotline is a very important facility. So I think, in a way, the hotline's existence, given the fact that, for instance, it has a 97% approval rating, means that even those people just calling to vent have been satisfied with the response. And I do believe that with a 22 million resident city like Beijing, it is also the proactive, response of the local community officers, which is encouraged by the existence of a helpline, because in the end, no community officer wants the residents within their jurisdiction to need to constantly call the helpline. So in a way, it is, I think the existence of the hotline is also creating an environment where people, like normal residents like me, whether they're Chinese or foreigner, have better access to the local community officers as well.
Yeah, you talk about, foreign residents having equal access to the local facility and service. Let's take a look at what is happening with a group of international scientists who are living in Huairou, a northern suburb of Beijing, at the Beijing Institute of Medical Sciences and Applications. What have been their experience with the hotline? And this is part of a longer 1-hour documentary made by CGTN called Hotline Beijing. Let's take a look at their story.
More than 100 experts from 16 countries and regions are currently working here. The Beijing Institute of Mathematical Sciences and Applications was established in 2020 by renowned mathematician Xing-Tang Yao. It's a symbol of Beijing's ambition to become a global center of science.
In the past, if a foreigner came to China and wanted to work or live in Huairou, it wasn't so simple. They faced inconveniences. They were unfamiliar with the place, and there was no one to help them. So, how would they cope?
Naturally, the district's hotline service doesn't want to receive complaints from some of the smartest people in the world. So they decided to act before the scientists called.
The foreign experts in Huairou are concerned about handling their certificates and licenses and about everyday life. For example, they want bilingual service.
I'm looking for milk.
Raspberries for like alpha, this one is organic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Many people to support you. This is a big difference with Italy. Here we are very well supported and also with a large number.
rather spoiled, I would say, even with this kind of speed and the feedback as a result of such a hotline. Let me go back to Wang Xiaohan again. What is the young people's attitude towards city governance, towards this kind of hotline? Do they tend to use it very often? How much connected are you feeling with the government or the authorities of the city when it comes to governance, when it comes to resolving issues in your daily life or school life?
Well, thank you for the question. Well, for me personally, I think there may be some because usually, like, when I try to work on some religious things, I need to enter here. The thing is, for me, I think 12345 is a really good channel to help me to connect it with the department. Like, you have a direct channel or direct way that explain your needs, and usually you can have very efficient response from the government. So I think that lower the distance between me and the government and let me know that government is already here. That if I have a need, they're already here to solve my problems. So that really leave me a very good impression on the government. I know that even for young people, we usually use some internet things, and I also found that 12345 they have a WeChat official account, and in here you can also enter the requirements and your needs, and I think that one also fits for young people's using style. Rather than directly call on the phone, we can use the WeChat, which is more popular with our daily use. I think there are also changes to fit young people's needs.
Raphael, how much do you think of the kind of efforts that are faced by cities around the world? Do you think China's experience is an interesting experiment, at least, that they're trying to satisfy the needs of everybody very fast, make big cities more livable, and also through the use of social media, through the use of big data, AI, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, of course. I feel that China is doing a very important work in this area. I feel that new technology, including AI and big data, the Chinese government tries to find applications in an innovative way to benefit the people, and also the government is always very concerned about the concerns of the local people, the problems people face in everyday life, and how to address them efficiently. And the Chinese government itself is very, very effective. So I think in this sense we can say that China is doing many experiences in this aspect that can be used as a model or inspiration by governments of other cities and countries around the world to address similar issues. Because really, as you pointed out, when you have a very big city, it's really hard to make people satisfied. There are lots of problems and lots of different interests.
Yeah.
But China is showing that it's possible. The use of big data, for example, to create statistics that can contribute for better policy planning is very positive.
Let's not forget, it's not hundreds of thousands, there are millions of grassroots cadres, grassroots workers, community service people who are working to get, for the last mile, because you have to complain who are working them out. It's these grassroots people. I think something has to be said about that. Raphael, what is your understanding?
Well, about that, I can say that I think the local committees and even the organization of the Chinese governance structure, so you have not only the government but also the party. This makes a very big difference. I've been to many places in China. I visited even villages, rural areas, grasslands, deserts, and so on. And everywhere I go, even in very small villages, you see there is a local committee. And the local committee, they know everybody there. They know the everyday life of local people.
Right.
What are their hardships? What are their dreams? What are the the problems in the place and what are also the potential for development of the local area. So only China has this. So this creates a very interesting situation. It gives China much better conditions to address the problems of local people. In this sense, I remember during the pandemic, the local community here, they arranged for us the COVID test, all those things, and everything was very well organized, and I was touched by the hard work of the volunteers. This must be said.
Yeah. Zoon, chip in a little bit on the part that it's not just the government system, but really the party with, from the top, central committees to the very, very local communities in a hutong, in the smallest alleyways, there will be someone who is responsible, whose KPI is tightly related to how satisfied the residents are, because they are actually part of the hotline. It's not the hotline solving, it's not the operator solving the problem, it's these people who are solving the problem.
The frontliners, basically, right? I mean, that's, I completely resonate with what Prof. just said. One of the things I noticed, and I'll go back to 2021, which was the year of the centenary of the party, and the government, the party gave out these July 1st medals, which were for frontliners in general. And that was it was a very eye-opening moment for me as someone who had also, I was lucky to interview some of those recipients of July 1st medals. And the point was this important message to the people at large that it's really, service for a selfless service for the country, for people, for betterment. That is the highest reward. That is what makes a true hero in a society. I think the kind of dedication and the kind of, ownership and commitment we see, they go out of their way to make residents feel better, safer, take their feedback. We've had many situations in this apartment where I'm living, if we face an emergency, we're in another city, I need even someone, can you please go feed my cat? I think she doesn't have enough food. They will do that. They're very caring. They have genuine empathy. And for that, the relationship between the residents. I think the emphasis on the messaging that the real heroes are the ones that are taking society forward, that are there to resolve your issues. And that respect, in essence, as a result, there is a respect by the residents, from the residents towards these frontliners. This is a very important part of the decorum. I'll also quickly mention that, even if I have this conversation with someone in Pakistan, of course we also have our helpline. We are very keen to deepen collaboration with China. And one of the most important aspects during the Prime Minister's visit this year was digital governance. Because just as Rafal was also again mentioning that the way China has created this ecosystem where the government officials are not only just resolving issues but doing capacity building, and good governance is a priority. This is something where China has a large potential to enable countries like my own, like Rafal's, like so many others to really step up on.
Thank you so much. We have to leave it there. Time has run out. I've been talking to Xiaolu from Renmin University of China, Zoon Ahmed Khan from Center for China and Globalization, Rafael Enrique de Beto, Brazilian expert at China International Communications Group, and Wang Xiaohan from Nottingham, Ningbo, China. I have also used this hotline. It's been a rather unforgettable experience. Again, to keep it in our mind, it's a city of 21 million. Imagine trying to make everybody happy and quickly. If I don't hang up the phone, the operator is not allowed to hang up the phone. I heard the longest record is 8 hours. Imagine that. Again, it's a work in progress, and I'm sure it will get even better. Many thanks to my guests, and thank you for having followed us on this special edition of the show.
I love you. 我爱你. This might be the easiest way to say I love you, since there are so many other romantic expressions. No matter if you're a rookie
你好，我是中文语言员
or a sophisticated learner.
我来北京5年了。
there is definitely something that will interest you. Check out Takeaway Chinese, a word that starts with 你好.
You're listening to CGTN Radio. Hear the difference. Experience. Mingle with the masters of Chinese music.
在这种美中。
Modernity. This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.
Now the news. I'm Shane Bigham. Chinese President Xi Jinping's in Macau to mark the 25th anniversary of its return to the motherland. The leader will also attend the inauguration ceremony of the sixth-term government of the Special Administrative Region and conduct an inspection tour. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi put forward 4 proposals to promote security and development in Asia. He attended the conference on interaction and confidence-building measures in Asia. The senior Chinese diplomat asked members to respect diversity, practice multilateralism, abandon the Cold War mentality, and pursue win-win cooperation. He also called on members to implement the Global Security Initiative and jointly build the Belt and Road Initiative. The foreign ministers of Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Pakistan also attended the meeting. China says it stands ready to provide emergency assistance to Vanuatu following a major earthquake in the Pacific Island country. A spokesperson for the China International Development Cooperation Agency says Beijing's deeply saddened by the casualties and property losses, adding that the aid will come in accordance with the island nation's pressing needs. A 7.3 magnitude tremor jolted Vanuatu on Tuesday, killing at least 14 people and wounding hundreds more. 2 Chinese nationals are among the dead. Authorities say the quake damaged reservoirs and caused several buildings to collapse, including embassies and a hospital. The country's caretaker prime minister has imposed a 7-day curfew in the worst affected areas. Russian authorities have detained 2 suspects over the killing of a senior military officer in Moscow. Lieutenant General Igor Kirilov and his assistant died outside an apartment building when a bomb went off on Tuesday morning. Kirilov was the commander of the Russian Armed Forces Chemical, Biological, and Radiation Defense Troops. Ukraine claims responsibility for the attack, and Moscow is threatening revenge. A UN Special Envoy says Syria has entered an entirely new reality following the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's government. Geir Peterson and UN aid chief Tom Fletcher briefed the Security Council from Damascus, where they've met with the country's new leaders. Peterson warned that significant obstacles and mounting tensions could threaten the fragile progress achieved.
Of course, it is only 11 days since the fall of the former regime. My door is open, and I hope in the coming days we can build that dialogue. I understand, we all do, the massive challenges facing the authorities and the need to help concretely. No, we understand the need for change. It will not last long if not built on credible and inclusive.
China says it hopes Syria will achieve peace and restore stability as soon as possible. Envoy Geng Shuang said China is ready to play a constructive role to that end. He said it's imperative to stabilize the security situation. Hamas says reaching an agreement for a ceasefire and prisoner exchange is possible if Israel stops setting new conditions. Hamas referred to the discussions on a ceasefire as serious and positive. Egypt and Qatar, with the participation of the United States, are trying to mediate an agreement to end the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. Jonathan Mergev has more from Tel Aviv.
Israel is hoping to create a reality in the Gaza Strip which will be quite similar to the one seen in the West Bank, meaning that the daily life will be controlled by the Palestinians. Israel will not be in charge of education, sewage, garbage, you name it, but will have an overall structure of security. Israeli forces will be allowed or will be able to go into the Gaza Strip if needed based on intelligence. We're seeing this practically night after night in the West Bank. We're hearing about nightly raids in places like Jenin, Nablus, and other places in the West Bank.
Shenzhou 19 crew members aboard China's space station have completed their first spacewalk. Tsai Shujie, Song Lingdong, and Wang Haoze worked for 9 hours, completing multiple tasks, including the installation of space debris protection devices. The China Manned Space Agency said the mission set a new record for the longest spacewalk by Chinese astronauts. The 2024 Beijing Forum on Swift Response to Public Complaints is opened in the Chinese capital. This year, the event is themed Modernizing the People-Centered Urban Governance. It provides an international platform dedicated to searching for innovative solutions for issues in public service and sharing experiences on urban governance. And that's the news. I'm Shane Bickham.
Keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Roundtable. I'm He Young. Today, we'll have a discussion with Macau's young innovators, students, and entrepreneurs, those who are driving change and shaping the future of this dynamic region. Their insights will give us a glimpse of the exciting possibilities ahead for Macau. And with December the 20th just around the corner, we're gearing up to celebrate a major milestone, the 25th anniversary of the Macau Special Administrative Region. It's the perfect time to hear from the next generation of leaders about what's in store for this vibrant city. Hello, everybody. Whether you're here in the audience or tuning in from around the world, welcome to Youth Talk, Macau's next chapter. And this is a truly special occasion as we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Macau Special Administrative Region. I'm CGTN's He Young.
And I'm Steve Hatherley, and it is such an honor to be a part of today's program. I think we're going to have a whole lot of fun, and we're going to learn a lot of things today as well. And as was highlighted in the opening video, Macau's growth has been phenomenal. That's the best word to describe it. The city has excelled in so many different exciting ways.
Absolutely. You know, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to visit, Macau's such a cool place to go. They have world-class hotels, world-class food, and of course, world-class people. And since it came back to the motherland in 1999, it truly has flourished as a bridge between the East and West.
It sure has. And today, together, we're going to discover exactly what makes Macau tick. We have a lot to do today. It's going to be a busy program. We have some wonderful guests joining us here. We're going to be talking about culture, education, the economy, and also how the relationship between Macau and the mainland has shaped Macau into the amazing place that it is today.
Now, let's dive into the cultural resonance of this discussion, and we're so happy to bring up incredible guests. And I'm introducing Miss Tong Ho Lam. Welcome, and also Miss Liu Ruanan. Come on and join us up in the stage and have a seat.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. And I'm very pleased to welcome our guests again, Miss Tong Ho Lam, a member of the Macau SAR Youth Affairs Committee and the Vice President of the Youth Association of People.
Yes, and joining Miss Tong is Miss Liu Ruanan from Macau SAR. She is a student majoring in English at Peking University. English was my major as well, so we can talk Shakespeare a little bit later, maybe after the show. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. Looking forward to our chat, so let's get into it.
Yes, let's do. And you've seen what our studio audience and also our online audience have to say about amazing places or things that they think of when we mention Macau. But what about for you guys? And let's start with Miss Tong. You know, what's that special place that maybe outsiders don't know that much about, but you're like, it's treasured, and share with us today?
I think that's definitely a really good question because, I believe that everyday lives of Macau could be very interesting in the eyes of tourists, and especially what makes traveling actually interesting is being able to experience different lifestyles, cultures, exploring the unknown, and a sense of novelty can actually evoke the feeling of satisfaction. If I were to recommend lesser-known places or attractions in Macau right now, I would suggest places rich in local flavor. For example, the historic Senado Square and the new Central Hotel in Macau, which opened recently after renovation. So it has nearly 100-year history since 1928, actually. So like if we were to look at the design of it, the meticulous decor inside evokes a sentiment of the 20s, 30s, and 40s. So it's like we're traveling back in time where the East meets the West. And actually, the hotel is listed as one of the Macau's heritage sites in 1992. And the surrounding area also features streets, ancient streets and traditional shops, which are all really interesting places to go to.
So you'll have a full schedule if you visit Macau, is what you're saying.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, let's talk food for a second, if we could. Egg tarts, I mentioned the egg tarts already. Internationally, I think the egg tarts are well known. What other dishes do we need to try if we go to Macau?
I think Portuguese chicken, maybe you won't want to visit, because it's basically tender chicken that is cooked with various ingredients, and I think the ingredients and the sauce are very important to know, because it's like a combination of the Chinese and also Western sauces and ingredients, such as we know there are coconut powder, curry powder, onions, and sometimes it would have white wine, and also it has beer from Portuguese. So I think it's a combination of different ingredients.
Thank you, chef. You get the recipe. You can share that a little bit later.
Absolutely. And, when we talk about, let's say, film, music, and these other forms of entertainment, how do you see mainland, the influence, and also, with original Macau? And it must be an interesting fusion as such. So, let's talk a little bit about arts and entertainment, and how do you feel about it?
In terms of arts and entertainment, Macau hosts various performance. So back in 2023, there are more than 2,000 large-scale performances and over 10,000 artistic and culturistic performances were organized by the local government and private enterprises as well. So it attracted nearly 20 million participants, generating approximately 1.1 billion box office revenue. And there are many different festivals as well, including the Arts Festival, the Macau International Music Festival, as well as the Macau Movie Festival. So these are all really interesting. And also recently, Zhang Yimou, a renowned director of our country, directed a stage play titled Macau 2049. So these are all really interesting choices for leisure and entertainment.
Again, we're going to have a full schedule if we visit Macau. When we think about the region and we think about things like fashion trends or social media trends, things like that, what do you think are the differences or perhaps the similarities there?
Well, I think there are no such significant differences between the view from Macau and the view from the Chinese mainland. I do feel like all of us are highly influenced by WeChat or Little Red Book. I would say I always look up practical advice from the Little Red Book. So I think there's not much kind of differences between us. And in terms of fashion and culture, I do see we share a lot of similarities as well. For example, me and my roommates all share the same taste in music, as well as in such as films and so on. I would say, when I first came here as a freshman, I feel like we are coming from a big family. It's we don't have any geographical boundaries between us.
Yeah, I know what you're saying about WeChat. Even as an expat, I learned very quickly in China, WeChat is life. If you don't have it, you can't do anything here, right? Very good. A question, if you don't mind, about, we were chatting before the show with the audience about Portuguese culture and the influence there. There's a remarkable blend, I think, that's happening in Macau. So what do you think that fusion of culture, how is that fusion of culture represented?
Well, we were to talk about Macanese, so basically Macau-born Portuguese descendants. In my perspective, I think they have actually fully integrated into Macau society. Driven by great love, the Chinese and Portuguese descendants, they have broken down their ethnic barriers, came together, and gave birth to many children with mixed heritage. So over generations, there are many children with different percentage of genes. And even if we're talking about Portuguese descendant families, they retain a lot of their Portuguese cultural traditions and how people love coming together and they would form cohesive groups. and circles, and they would have lots of different Portuguese cultural, traditional style social gatherings. And so yeah, like everything's just coming together. And even like we also celebrate, different festivals. Like, there's this Lusonia festival where we celebrate Macau as a bridging role for different groups of it's just a really wide range of diversity, people with different backgrounds coming together. And then we also celebrate Christmas and Easter. So, other than enjoying Christmas music, people would also play mahjong during Christmas holidays. And yeah, in Chinese New Year, even like we see Macanese people celebrating with the local Chinese, like we would give red pockets, enjoy lion dances, moon gazing. Yeah,
Do you have the best culture of both worlds? And, with Christmas coming up and also the Spring Festival where the Chinese New Year coming up, and it's a very festive season for especially you guys to enjoy both or whatnot. Yes, and talking about cultural integration, and it happens in so many shapes and forms. In the last 25 years, we've seen that in terms of culture and arts and so many aspects. You mentioned that there are wonderful performances that could originally be of mainland production, but it enjoys Macau twist. And also, right before we started the show, we had this mega discussion about you having this experience of playing in an orchestra, and you've got quite the sort of encounter with some top musicians of your peers coming from the mainland too.
Yeah, I was in my middle school, and I've been a member of the orchestra conservatory, and I formed orchestra with the top and talented musicians from the middle school of Central Conservatory of Music in the Chinese mainland. And at that time, I feel like it was an amazing experience for me, because for the one thing, I can learn practical musical skills from them, and also the whole process of practice was very smooth, and the whole show was like a success. And it was like, I feel like we were coming from a big family, and in terms of music preferences or like our favorite composers or the least favorite composers, we share a lot of similarities.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when we think of musicians, especially when you're practicing an instrument, at least from, when kids experience for us in the mainland, I'm thinking about hours and hours of practice, and to get into a top music school, you got to be the best of the best. What is learning a musical instrument like for you guys? I mean, is it a similar kind of experience, and was it like, wow, you guys are kind of amazing when you see those guys, who are kind of, past the selection to be there in this sort of exchange program?
I would say a lot of Macau's youth, they all harness a skill in musical instruments. A lot of them.
That is the total opposite of Canadian children. Not musically inclined at all. It's the hours and hours and hours of practice we have to do.
Yeah, and also I think Macau government always embrace different forms of art to be taught with the children and especially youth in Macau. And so there are many opportunities for us to join, for example, like what Kalan was saying, it's like the art festivals and international music festivals. It not only welcomes international or national artists, but also youth from Macau. So we can all gather together and perform together in that event. I would also like to jump in a bit about here, how Macau is trying to develop into a more musical instruments. Filmmaking is also something that the Macau government has been trying to push. So, how Macau has been it's a relatively small market compared to other, big cities like Hong Kong. And, well, although it has a relatively small market with fewer resources, the government has put in policy to support films so that they would support feature-length films, short films, and so that local enthusiasts would have the opportunities to ignite their creative passion. So I too have participated in one of these programs, and so in which I directed a short film titled The Granny, and it was screened in theaters in Macau, and it was also screened recently again earlier this month. So we see that the government is doing things and are putting policies in place so that our culture can be further developed and thrived.
Yeah, and